Hi, I'm Dr. Klahn, and today we're going to talk about the plant kingdom. You can use your hand to represent the 6 kingdoms of life. So just by tracing your fingers and your palm, you can see that the first kingdom on earth was eubacteria, next is archaea, then protist, then fungus, then plants, and last is animals. Today we're going to focus on the plant kingdom. So the plant kingdom falls into 4 groups of plants. The first group are the mosses, and they are the oldest. They're the most archaic plant on the planet. And these plants are very short, and they have to be found living near water because they lack a vascular system. The word vascular is synonymous to vessels. So think about the blood vessels in your arm serving as tubes, carrying the blood to the heart and away from the heart. So instead of having vessels or even a true root system, mosses have these tiny little structures called rhizoids. So you can see the rhizoids with the naked eye or with a small, cheap little magnifying glass. So rhizoids are in turn primitive root structures. So to be a living thing, you have to be able to reproduce. You have to be able to make more of yourself. And mosses were on the planet before the first seed evolved. So mosses reproduce with something called spores. And spores are microscopic. So they are the microscopic reproductive unit of the world's first plant. The second group of plants are much taller. These are ferns. And there are many different species of ferns on the planet. This is the second oldest group of plants, and just like mosses, ferns also reproduce with spores. But these spores will get in clusters on the back of the leaf and can be visible during certain times of the year. So you can take your magnifying glass and you can zoom in and see these circular patterns of spores that are on the back of the leaves whenever they're ready to reproduce. Unlike mosses, ferns can get taller. And the reason they can get taller is because they actually have a vascular system. So a vascular system is simply the tubes that run through the plant down into the soil and into the ground. And these are the first plants to have a true root system. So they both have spores, but it's the ferns to be the first group of plants to have that vascular system to allow them to get taller. That also means that these can get a little bit farther away from the water because they're not relying on constant moisture. The third group of plants are called gymnosperms. So we have mosses, ferns, and now we have gymnosperms. These will get much taller. Now we can get into trees. And these are the first group of plants to evolve to have a seed, along with a seed coat, without a seed coat. So the word gymnosperm is Greek for naked seed. So if you think of a pine cone, this is a cluster of naked seeds that allow this organism to reproduce. Again, you can take your magnifying glass and you can zoom in to the cross section of this pine tree, and you can clearly see the distinct annual rings. And within those rings, you can see little white circles. And those white circles are the vascular system. And that's what draws moisture into the plant to hydrate it. And our last and final group of plants are the group that we are most used to interacting with. These are also seeds, just like the gymnosperms, but these seeds are covered. So the seeds are down inside the plant, and they're covered by these beautiful petals or flowers. And the flowers are there, they're an evolutionary adaptation to attract pollinators. If you look at the fossil record, you'll see that angiosperms and pollinators, insects, evolved at roughly the same time because they rely on each other. It's a mutualistic symbiotic relationship in which the insects feed off the plant. The plant in turn gets their seeds spread throughout to ensure reproduction. Okay, let's review these 4 on the board. Okay, so what is unique about the mosses and the ferns is they both reproduce with what? Spores, microscopic reproductive units before seeds evolved on the planet. Gymnosperms and angiosperms both reproduce with what? Now the spores have evolved into seeds. The difference between a gymnosperm and an angiosperm can be remembered by looking at the beginning of the word. In gymnosperm, we have gym, which is a common male name. And at the beginning of angiosperm, we have Angie, which is a fairly common female name. So with gymnosperms, think about two little boys throwing pine cones at each other. Remember that pine cones are naked seeds. And these are the type of seeds, the type of plants that you find in a coniferous forest. Coniferous starts with cone, pine cone. Coniferous, also known as the boreal forest, also known as the taiga, also known as the cold forest. And this happens to be the largest forest on the planet. These are the forests that make up the countries of Canada, Russia, and then disperse throughout the rest of the United States as well, and other areas of the world. So, gymno is Greek for naked seed. Angio is also Greek for covered seeds. So I have an example of that right here. Remember that angiosperms are the ones we're most familiar with, such as if you're wearing clothes made of cotton, that's an angiosperm. The fruits and vegetables you eat, such as this zucchini, all started off as a naked seed. I'm holding a seed coat. You can see on the tips of these plants that the seed coat has been pushed up as it germinated, and it's about to pop off these seed coats. So that covered seed is an adaptation to protect the reproductive unit of the plant. Okay, next let's talk about nutrition. How do they get their nutrients? So mosses are the only group that are non-vascular. And when you think of vascular, think of vessels, tubes. Just like our blood tubes, they have tubes to bring liquid in and out of the plant and to bring nutrients in and out of the plant. Mosses are the only group up here that lack that. All other three groups have a what? They have a vascular system, or they have tubes. And last, we'll talk about the evolution of the plants. How old are these plants? The age of the earth is 4.6 billion years. These plants are only millions of years old. So the oldest, again, are mosses, the first to evolve. And mosses date back about 500 to approximately 700 million years. So I'll put MY, millions of years. The ferns came along at approximately 400 million years ago, more specifically about 370 million years ago, according to the fossil record. Next in line we have our naked seeds, our conifers, our gymnosperms, and they date back about 320 million years. And finally we have our newest evolved plant kingdom plants, the angiosperms, the covered seeds, the flowers, the bushes, the trees, even grasses are angiosperms. You don't see a lot of these flowers because they're very tiny. These only date back about 100 million years, about 90 million years more specifically. 90 million years. And remember that dinosaurs went extinct about 65 million years ago. And then dinosaurs go all the way back to about 270 million years. So your dinosaur timeline is about right here. We as humans have only been on the planet for about 300,000 years. So again, these are the 4 groups of the plant kingdom. And plants are so important because they provide us with the clothes we wear, the food we eat, about 50% of all the oxygen that we breathe, and they also take in all the carbon dioxide that animals exhale, along with preventing erosion and keeping the soils in place. Thanks for watching.